talking on TV. Tell us about the end. Hannity and Beck on Fox News, telling us how to win. Taxes getting higher.
Well, I think you kind of get the drift there from Rex Darnell. A little C&W for you. It's called Get Back to Our Roots. And by the way, Rex Darnell, a great Tea Partier himself. And coming up right now, we've got the National Editor-in-Chief of Stand Up America US. Yes, that is General Paul Vallely's website. Scott Winchell himself, a plethora of information. And Scott, thanks for being on to Captain's America.
Matt, thanks again. I really appreciate you calling me up and asking me to be on the show.
Well, Scott, you have information that we're not hearing, that I am aware of, that you are aware of, that the General talked about this week on the program. These people, these rebels in Libya, nobody has done their homework in the media.
It's beyond that, Matt. It's a matter of what I consider to be an arrogant ignorance. They have chosen their ideas of who these people are, and they're sticking to it, and despite the facts.
Well, let's talk about the facts. First of all, there's a significance in the flags that we're seeing flown these days, not only in Egypt, where Mubarak is gone, but also in Libya. Now, the flag that is surfaced from the insurgency, if you will, call them the rebels if you want, in Egypt, is the flag that was being flown back before Anwar Sadat was assassinated by elements of the Muslim Brotherhood. They brought that flag back. That should tell you something. Now in Libya, the flag we're seeing is actually the flag of the Sunni desert tribes. Those are the same people that lived in Tikrit in Iraq. And who was it that lived there, Scott?
Oh, our wonderful friend who is unfortunately no longer with us, Mr. Saddam Hussein.
So you can see the pattern emerging, and some of the estimates from some of the blogs that are out there say that 1 out of every 5 of these rebels at one time or another either was serving in the Iraqi insurgency being paid for by Saddam Hussein and the Sunnis, or they know somebody that was or had a relative there. Isn't that strange?
Matt, there were over 100 Libyans caught in Iraq back in 2006, 2007.
I remember it.
And they were all tied to Al-Qaeda. There's a group in the Cyrenaica region, which is the eastern portion of Libya that borders along Egypt. These tribes that you talked about before are inundated with all kinds of Islamic fighters. They actually call themselves the Fighting Islamic Group in Libya, and one of their leaders, it goes by a couple names, but Abu Layth al-Libi or Abu Yahya al-Libi.
Easy for you to say.
Well, I'll tell you, it's hard to keep up with their names because translations into English are quite different from one person to another. But we have to remember that, Al-Qaeda called for these uprisings in the Maghreb. The Maghreb, for those who don't know, is the southern Mediterranean territory of North Africa. And Ayman al-Zawahiri openly called for Tunisia to be overthrown, for Libya to be overthrown, Egypt, and so forth. And the ties between all of these nations have been going for quite some time. There is a group that is Algerian-based called the Salafist Group for Preaching and Combat, has openly joined Al-Qaeda, and they have very close ties with the people in Cyrenaica. That's the oil region, by the way,
right.
Benghazi. In fact, France and Portugal have already recognized a group that says that they're the National Transitional Council, and they're led by Mustafa Abdul Jalil. And that it's just amazing to me that the American public is not told who we're fighting, why we're fighting, what the end game is. Of course, if you don't have an end game, all bets are off. Like I told you earlier, Matt, you kick over a can of worms, be careful what comes out. It's going to be more than just worms.
You're right. And
in this case here, we have known Al-Qaeda operatives in this area, and they are actively fighting on the side of the rebels.
Yes, and folks, we are speaking with the National Editor-in-Chief of the Stand Up America U.S. website. That's General Paul Vallely's website, Scott Winchell. Now, Scott, we speak on a regular basis to several high-ranking military and, let's put it this way, former intelligence officials, station chiefs, this, that, and the other, and all that sort of stuff. And we get information it's given to us that obviously when we do our research and we find out it's verifiable, we print it on our websites, we talk about it on my radio show and whatnot. But General Thomas McInerney, a good friend to both of us, a good friend of General Vallely, came out the other day on national television, because I was watching it, and said, we have been snookered into getting involved in Libya. He didn't say why, but I think you and I now know the reason, don't we?
Oh, I'm convinced that myself in my discussions with the Lieutenant General and with General Vallely, and like you said, many other people, we've been warning the federal government for years about this stuff.
Right.
It didn't just happen overnight.
Yep.
The roots for these things have been going on for a very long time, and to be quite frank, the administration is misleading the public.
Right.
This is not some big old event to create a new democracy. It's a word that I really hate when people use, because first off, we're not a democracy; we're a representative republic.
Yes.
But when we start talking about democracy in these lands, you have an election, usually just one.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is a democratic election, so they can tell the world with their propaganda, see, we elected this government, just like we had the election in Egypt a few days ago.
Right.
And guess who came out on top there?
Yep.
These are the people that...
Well, let me stop you there for a second. I believe it was the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yes, sir.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And, and then we have people like General Clapper, who tell us that the Muslim Brotherhood is a secular organization.
The guy must be on drugs.
Him and John Brennan and
Right.
others, they defend the word jihad.
Yep.
They just clearly don't want to know the facts.
You're right.
Turn around and they counsel the President of the United States to do things. And this gang that can't shoot straight can't even agree with each other.
You are
Hillary
right.
Clinton says one thing, Clapper says something else.
Yep.
Abel Mullen says another thing, and nobody's involved in one message.
And our president stands up there and says, oh, by the way, Gaddafi's got to go, but no, it's not regime change. And then maybe the next day he'll lean a little bit more towards regime change. And none of that has anything to do with what the United Nations agreed on, did it?
Well, they can't even agree on what to call this action. Right now, the term I heard this morning, I got quite a chuckle out of it, called a Kinetic Military Action.
Wait a minute, kinetic as in energy?
Energy.
Oh, boy.
Bombs as in bullets. Why doesn't this administration like that three-letter word, war? I mean, nobody likes war.
No.
Why do we always have to say something other than what it really is?
Well, we need to call a spade, and when we get involved in a police action, it's a war. People are shooting at each other. People are firing missiles back and forth. And, oh, by the way, I wonder how that Libyan pilot that was stupid enough to take off in the middle of the no-fly zone and get shot down by French Mirage jets feels right now.
Oh, I know. And
that's not war, though, is it?
Well, and the other thing is everybody keeps calling this a no-fly zone.
Yeah.
It's not a no-fly zone. It's a no-go zone. In
Right.
military parlance, that means if it moves, it gets shot.
That's right.
And, we have helicopters. We've had to rescue one of our own pilots.
Two
of them, while the F-15 has...
Yeah, there was a crew of two on there.
Yeah, and, there were 7 other fighters that had to go in and
Right.
protect that downed aircraft.
Yep.
And they were shooting up the world down there to keep the so-called rebels
Yep.
and the Libyan forces away from this.
Yep. They sure were. But guess what, Scott? We never heard that mentioned.
No, you don't. And
We never heard that mentioned, and you and I know what was going on.
they flew off the USS Enterprise out of the 6th Fleet.
Yes, sir.
So many ships right now in the Mediterranean. It's just incredible. And
See, that's a general now on the phone.
Actually, I think it was. But
Tell him you were talking to the captain. He'll understand.
Yes, I know he will, and he'll get a chuckle out of it.
Yep.
The timing is always wonderful. Again, we're sending $670,000 cruise missiles, Tomahawk missiles in.
Right.
We're spending money hand over fist.
Yep.
Nobody knows who's in charge. This administration...
Wait a minute. We know who's in charge. We are.
Well, we're supposed to be.
Yeah, we are in charge. Even if they appoint somebody from Egypt as the head of this, I'm telling you, we're still in charge.
Well, you bring up another point there, Matt. Why is all of the military action have to be taken by the United States? Germany's backing out already. Italy,
Saudi Arabia.
Well, they have all of our planes.
Right.
A lot of people don't understand too is that the Egyptian army.
By the way, we're training their combat pilots over here in the United States right now. Why couldn't we train them in actual combat and let them fly over Libya?
Yeah, they're up in Idaho right now.
Yeah.
Texas.
Yep.
it's just incredible, too, when you talk about the petrodollars. Why is the American public handling this bill of fare?
Don't know.
It's incredible, all of that oil money. And with Egypt right next door, why isn't Egypt helping out the so-called democratic uprising?
Right.
And again, back to that point, Matt, real quick, I hate when people throw around that term, Democrat.
Yeah.
You have to understand words. Words have meaning, and these people know how to manipulate words.
Yes, they do.
So that they can get our American public on their side.
Yep. Which right now, that's a divided issue. And, Scott, we have run out of time here. Folks, we've been speaking today with the National Editor-in-Chief of Stand Up America U.S., Scott Winchell, a good friend, right-hand man for Major General Paul Vallely. And I'm proud, again, Scott, to be the janitor on the kitchen cabinet because I get to clean up the messes.
Well, Matt, thank you very much for inviting me on your show again. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Folks, we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.